And so I'm going to share with you some really personal stuff and some really stuff that I haven't shared ever, and at least not in one place like I'm going to do here. And then the actual step by step about how I overcame these things. By the way, this was a training that we were going to do as a prelim just for S3 Summit registrants, but we decided it was too important not to just share with anybody, whether you're coming to the S3 Summit or not. If you haven't got your ticket to that event yet, we added a virtual option 2 weeks ago for folks that simply do not want to travel to Orlando. So now you have the option of getting a ticket in person or getting a ticket virtually. And you can simply go to s3liftoff.com. I put it in the chat somewhere. Maybe Julie can type it in there as well. s3liftoff.com to get your ticket. The price couldn't be any better. We also added 2 additional bonuses, which I'll be talking about later on. And one of them is a actual recording of the entire event. We were going to sell the recordings, but we're going to give them to folks who register either in person or virtually and show up for the event. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you don't have your ticket yet, go ahead and get it. Okay, so let's talk about my secrets for turning things around. And the first thing we've got to talk about is the difference between major problems and minor problems. And a lot of times in our mind, we as Jim Rohn was talking about something different in this quote, but we often think of a minor problem, we blow it out of proportion. So we think about it so much, we stew about it so much that that the problem becomes bigger than it actually is. And so there is a huge difference for solving minor problems. So I'm going to give you my very simple 3-step framework for overcoming small problems. And then we're going to go into depth about what if the problem isn't small? What if the problem actually is big? But I wanted to give you this just as a little bonus. The first thing is to put yourself in a resourceful state, right? So how you feel makes a really dramatic difference in the results and the ideas that you're going to come up with for overcoming the problem. So if you're in a negative, slumped down, depressed, worried state, then what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to tap into all of these resources that you have. You're not going to be able to tap into your subconscious mind, because what you're doing is you're feeding your subconscious mind negativity. You're feeding it fear. You're feeding it worry. And so that's what's going to come back out. So put yourself in a resourceful state. And there's a lot of ways to do that. The easiest way to do it is to change the way that you use your body. So Tony Robbins talks a lot about this. By simply changing the way that you move, the way that you breathe, that will instantly change your physiology. So get up, move, change your physiology. That's the first step. The second step is to become decisive and to make a decision quickly. Again, this is on a minor problem. As I mentioned just a minute ago, what happens a lot of the times is we don't make a decision. We think about it, and then this little thing in our mind becomes really big. So make a damn decision. Hey, I'm going to decide, here's what I'm going to do. And then the third step is to take massive action. And as you can see, the word that I specifically chose here is obliterate the problem, right? And so by following these 3 steps, number 1, putting yourself into a positive state, then accessing, okay, what can I do right now to solve this? What are all the things I can do? Then just take action on things. You'll really obliterate the problem really, really quickly. Okay. And the quicker you can make a decision, the better off it's going to be for you. Really successful people make decisions really, really quickly. That's what now they gather the facts, they gather the information, but then they make a decision, because the truth is making the wrong decision is better than making no decision at all, because if it's a wrong decision, you just follow the same process until the problem is gone. Now, what about a big problem? What about something that's not a small thing that you can just solve right away? So that's what I want to discuss with you. And I'm going to tell you about the 3 really dark periods in my life. Now, there's been more than this, but these are 3 whoppers. And I know some folks like Jack Turk, who's on here, has been a friend of mine for years, has actually seen me go through all of these problems. So the first thing was getting fired from a company called Magic Masters. I had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and got a job at this magic shop. It was an executive magic shop, meaning basically we sold overpriced magic tricks to unsuspecting conventionaires in convention hotels, the Marriott Marquis downtown Atlanta and the Hilton downtown Atlanta. Now, I wasn't making a lot of money here. I was the number one salesperson. I think my best year, I made 23,000. My best year, but it was the job that I had at that time, and I was fired from that job. And so I'll talk more about that scenario in just a little bit. But even if you're only making 23,000 a year, if that's your only income stream and you're already in debt and you have no job, it is a scary, scary situation. Number two was buying a karate school. Some of you know that story. I'm going to tell it more in depth at the S3 Summit. But I actually bought a karate school from a friend of mine. Found out that the karate school was $30,000 in back rent. We did not have a lawyer when we bought the school. It was from a friend, right? We actually signed an agreement on thermal fax paper. I don't know if anybody remembers thermal fax paper, the fax paper that rolls up. And we found out it was $30,000 in debt, which we had assumed. We also found out that my friend who sold us the school sold all of the contracts for the students who were already there the day before we actually closed on the school, meaning we had a school full of students that we needed to service with no money coming in on top of the 30,000 in debt. And so it was ugly. I literally, when people say this, they like joking about it or they're exaggerating. During that year and a half at the karate school, I literally didn't make any money. So that was an extremely, extremely low point. And then the third and the most devastating one was when I got divorced. A bunch of bad stuff happened. I did 4 seminars in a row that all lost money. My mind was just not in the right place. My business started tanking. I started making really, really poor decisions. Now, the nice thing about all of this is that I came out stronger and I came out ahead. But here's the thing I want you to know. I did not have a process for handling these issues. There was no specific process. But then what I did recently is I look back at actually what did I do in all 3 of these instances to turn things around. Now, some things turned around quicker than other things, but some things took a lot longer. But was there a process? And there was absolutely a process that I followed that I didn't know that I was following. And so what I did for you guys is I've actually put it down into a step-by-step system that you can follow. And so here is the process, and then we'll do a case study to show you specifically how I applied what I'm about to share with you. So if you're not taking notes, start taking copious notes. Again, you don't necessarily have to follow my process, but you do need a process. So when you come across a problem, you can beat it. You can come out stronger. You can come out more confident. So here is the first step. Number one, and this is the hardest step in my opinion, is to adopt the belief that everything happens for a reason and it's and a purpose and it serves me. Now, I got to tell you, when I was going through my divorce, that was very, very difficult to have that mindset. When I was in the karate school and found out that we were basically screwed right from day number one, it was very difficult to adopt that mindset. But at one point, I did make that shift in order in all 3 of the scenarios that I gave you to move forward and to start the moving forward process. Okay. So I can tell you that my divorce was the most difficult one to move forward from. Okay. But eventually I did adopt this mindset. So that's the first thing. Everything that happens for a reason and a purpose and it serves me. And now that I look back at all of these negative things, these really dark times in my life, I see that there was a purpose. There was a reason and it did serve me. Right. So now just going back to the divorce thing, now I am married to literally my dream woman. Right. I never knew that I was supposed to feel this way about a woman. Right. I just never did. Nothing against my previous wife, but just never knew it. And so none of that would have happened, right? So I wouldn't have this, what I have now, had I not gone through hell, and it was hell. The next thing is to change your state. I mentioned this right away. So that's the first thing I said when you have a small problem. Well, this is a really big one. You've got to change your state. You've got to put yourself in a confident, unstoppable, courageous, powerful state. You've got to access that, because by accessing that state, and again, one of the ways to do it is to change your physiology. Another way to do it is, what are you saying to yourself? Another way to do it is to change what you're saying to yourself. Another way to do it is change what you're visualizing in your mind. So there's three different ways, right? You've got to put yourself in this state. You've got to put yourself in a resourceful state in order to come up with resourceful answers. The next step in the process is to change your environment. What do I mean by that? I mean, so if you're trying to figure this out, and you're in your office all day, get the hell out of your office. Go outside. One of the times, and I don't remember which one it was, I believe it was after I got fired from that great $23,000 a year job, is I actually went and I brought my computer to a hotel room, and I bought, I stayed in a hotel for 2 nights, for 2 days, just so I could change my environment. Now, I didn't have the money to do what I would do now, but change your environment. Doesn't mean you need to spend money, but change where you are going to, where you're thinking. All right. So the other day I was working on something. I'm in my office, which I'm in right now, and all I did was go into our conference room, walked out my door, started writing on my whiteboard. I put on music, right? I put on some rock and roll, right? And so it really got me going. So music changed my state and allowed me to access more powerful resources inside of me. So change your environment. The next thing is determine what you want. This is, so oftentimes when we are in a very, very dark time, we are thinking about the things that we don't want, right? Why is this happening? We're questioning all of these things, as opposed to figuring out, okay, here is actually what I want, right? Here is what I want to have happen. And my parentheses there is to not edit your future vision. So literally write down with a pen in a journal. I guess you can substitute a computer, but I would really strongly recommend you write it down. Write down what you want it to be, right? What do you want it to be? And don't edit it, because sometimes this is why it's so important to change your state and to get into that confident, powerful, courageous state of mind. Because what will happen if you're not there, your mind will instantly start telling you, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that, when in fact you can have it, when in fact you can change it. So what do you want it to look like? You've got to know, what do I don't like what it is right now, right? So what the hell do I want it to look like? Right? So that's the next step. The step after that is to brainstorm solutions. Brainstorm solutions. And this means whatever comes into your mind, you write down without editing it. No matter how crazy, no matter how far-fetched the idea is for achieving the vision that you just set for yourself, you write it all down. Don't stifle your subconscious mind. Maybe you're not going to implement all of the ideas that you come up with, but what will happen is one idea will lead to another idea, which will lead to another idea, which will lead to another idea. Okay, so don't edit yourself. Whatever comes into your mind, write it down. Write it down and just keep writing until you're exhausted, until you've exhausted every solution. And if you don't have a good one, the next day do the same exercise, and the next day do the same exercise. And then you will come up with the solution. The next step in the process is to create a massive action plan and immediately do something on your plan. So now you've got all of these ideas. Now, sometimes I'll write them down in my journal. Sometimes I'll use my computer. Oftentimes I'll use a whiteboard in our conference room, and I'll just start writing down ideas. Okay. Writing down just different ideas, different strategies all over the board. It's a disaster. It's a mess. And then I look at it and I say, okay, this is a good one. 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 And now I'm going to create my plan based upon that. And then the key is to do something immediate. I'm not talking the next day. I'm talking immediate. What's the first thing on your action plan? Now, maybe you can't accomplish that first thing, but you most certainly can do something to help with the accomplishment of that first thing. Okay. Jim Rohn says, never leave the site of a goal without taking any action, without taking some form of action. What is it? Is it a phone call? Is it an email that you need to send? I don't know. But what is something that you can do? Can you actually tackle that and knock off that first thing? Because what it does, number one, it builds momentum. And it also tells yourself, I'm actually following through on this. I actually can beat this. I can actually get through this. I can actually live this vision. I'm not just thinking about it anymore. I'm doing it. So it gives you total amount of confidence. Okay. The next thing, keep changing your state. Okay. And stay focused on solutions and your vision. Successful people focus on solutions and not the problem. They focus on solutions and not the problem. But just because you change your state one day, one time, doesn't mean that you are going to be able, that's going to maintain. It's like you don't go to the gym one time, lift some weights, and then you come out ripped, right? That's not the way it works. And it's the same thing here. You've got to constantly be aware of how you're feeling. Okay. And focus on it, because if you don't, then you get back into that negative thinking, and that empowers you. You get afraid, you can't sleep at night. Right. But if you're focused on, if you change your state, so you're positive, confident, courageous, whatever it is for you, whatever's going to get you to take action, that's what you want to do. And then you got to stay focused on the solutions. This didn't work. We're going to go to the next thing. This didn't work. We're going to go to the next thing. We're going to keep doing it until it's done. Right. But now, again, that sounds easy, but it's not easy if you don't change your state and keep focusing on your vision. All right. And then the final thing, the final point is to constantly be moving forward towards that vision, and know that you will get there. You will get there because you've made a decision, which means to cut off from any other possibility. I'm going to make this happen. Now, by the way that it may happen for you may not be the same, may not be like, you may not achieve that vision. You may achieve something better than that vision. That's what happened to me. So I didn't necessarily achieve the vision I wrote down. I actually did better than the vision, but it was because of these things, this constant moving forward. And again, you got to change you got to stay in the positive, courageous state, focusing on solutions in order to keep moving forward. If you don't, then what I'm just telling you is just motivation. I don't want it to be just motivation. This is the plan. Now, let me give you a case study for exactly how I implemented this. Again, if you guys have any questions, please enter them in. Okay. So number one is that here was the scenario when I was working at this company, Magic Masters. I was deep in debt. Okay. I believe I was at that time 30,000 in debt, which at that time, $30,000 was a lot of money, Okay. I had little to no savings. So we barely had any money in the bank. And I'm talking like having like $2,000 in the bank, maybe 5,000 max. Okay. Had lousy credit, right? Because it was behind on the bills, right? Had no severance pay or unemployment. I don't know how my employer did it, but somehow he figured it out. So I didn't get any employment. I didn't get any severance, had nothing. So now I am fired, and I am driving back without a job with this scenario. I think you would agree that that's a dark time. Now, I wish I could tell you that I was Mr. Joe Positive on the way home, but I wasn't. I had to go and tell my wife that, first of all, I wasn't making shit on top of it, but now I wasn't making anything. And I had to go tell her this. So finally, I got to this belief. And I actually got to this belief on my long ride home, stuck in Atlanta traffic. And the belief was, and this is what I said, the first thing that I said when I walked into our condo. I said, good news, I got fired and now I'm free. Now, I'm not sure that my wife at the time thought it was very good news, but I really, truly believed that. I changed my belief that, remember, the first step in the process was to change your belief to everything happens for a purpose and it serves me. And so that's what my attitude was. And I really believed it. And I said it with enthusiasm. Those are the first words that came out of my mouth when I came in. Now, think about the difference. Had I come in and I said, oh my God, I just lost my job. We're probably going to lose the condo. We're going to, right? No good. No good. So that's the first step. The next thing is and again, by the way, there was still fear. I don't want to make it sound like I wasn't fearful. I was. So I sat down though, and I went out on our porch, which overlooked a little lake, and I wrote down, what do I want? And I finally said, you know what? I want to work for myself once and for all. I never wanted to work for anyone else. But when I got out of college, I got a job at a radio station. Then I got a job at Magic Masters, because that's what you're supposed to do. And so now I was like, what do I really want? And what I really, sorry for about pounding the table here, but I'm very passionate about this. I know the camera's probably moving, is that I knew that I finally freaking wanted to work for myself. I did not want to have a boss. And by the way, I wanted that forever, as long as I can remember, from seeing my dad come home from Sears every day and just hating his job. I didn't want that for myself. All right. So I wanted to work for myself once and for all. That's what I wanted to do. So what was my immediate solution? Remember, I had to make money, so I couldn't do something crazy. So I came up with a bunch of things that I could do, including living out my dream of being a professional magician. Okay. But that was going to take too much time. Right. And so what I did is I said, what do I know? What am I good at? One of the solutions, by the way, this is after brainstorming a bunch of solutions, is, hey, why don't I was the number one salesperson at this company selling magic tricks to conventioneers. I wonder if we could do the same thing, selling overpriced magic tricks to moms during the Christmas season as gifts. And so my solution was to open up a magic cart at Perimeter Mall during the Christmas season. Now, I want you to understand that I had no understanding of retail. All I knew was being able to gather a crowd and sell them. I didn't know about inventory. I didn't know about any of the stuff that it takes to run a business, because I had never run a business. So that was the solution. Problem: I have no money. I have no money, and there's no way a bank is going to give me credit to open up a magic cart at the mall. So what did I do? Well, we had some credit cards. Now, I'm not recommending this as your solution if you're in a scenario like I was. I'm just saying this was my solution. So we got credit cards. Okay. So then I created a very rough, massive action plan. And the reason I say was very rough is because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what to do. And oftentimes your massive action plan is going to be rough. But just the fact that you're sitting down and you're writing your massive action plan out and you've got some plan is better than having no plan at all. Now, when you leave the S3 Summit, by the way, whether you're attending virtually or in person, you're going to have a plan. I'm going to talk more about that later, an actual step-by-step plan, not ideas. So this was my plan. It was very rough, but I started doing. So what's the first action that I took after creating my plan? I said, well, I'm not going to be able to run this cart by myself. Who do I trust? Who do I trust who would do this? So my friend of now 50 years, his name's Gino Lee. He was a chef, had no experience doing magic, had no experience selling, had no experience doing presentations, a chef. But I called him and I spoke with passion about my vision. I said, I can train you. I've trained other people. I can train you to do this. I can train you to follow the script. And I got him on board. I got him to say, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this entrepreneurial step with you. And then we immediately set up a call with the mall to discuss getting a cart there. By the way, the cart was, I believe, and this was years ago, I believe it was $15,000. So I want you to think about this for a minute. I was making 23,000 and this cart for 2 months was 15,000. Now, by the way, that doesn't include inventory we had to buy in all of that. So what were the results of this? What were the results of following this process, which I laid out for you just a few minutes ago? Number one, we made a ton of mistakes, but we learned from each one of those mistakes. I learned about keeping inventory. We learned about credit and getting stuff on credit. We learned about all the things we didn't know about getting a merchant account for our credit card, about doing all of the things. And so what stops a lot of us is that we think that we need to figure it all out before we start taking action. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way successful people do it. You create your plan, you start taking action, and you learn along the way. That's how you do it. I can also tell you I worked harder than I ever worked before. And I can tell you at the end was happier than I ever was before. Both Gino and I worked 12 to 14 hours a day, standing on our feet for 2 months, pitching magic tricks, stopping a crowd, doing a demonstration, and selling them the tricks. By the way, it wasn't smooth sailing. There were days that we got shut out, zero sales, especially in the beginning. But we stayed focused. We stayed on our plan. We kept doing it, kept refining it. We kept learning. We kept changing. Okay. And then the bottom line is I made more money at the end of this in those 2 months than I had made in the previous year. But the bigger scenario was not the amount of money, which was pretty good, right? To make more money in 2 months than you made in a year, like by a wide margin, right? But the real thing was it gave me the real confidence that I could be an entrepreneur, that I could actually do this, that I could learn, I could make my dreams come true. And so I don't know where you are right now. Maybe you're in the winter of your business or the winter of your life and things are not going well. Implement this plan. Implement this plan. Maybe things are going well. Keep this plan in your back pocket because you're going to need it because it works. And I can tell you that we started this with saying the first belief that you need to adopt is that everything happens for a purpose and it serves me. Now, by the way, I then had a big misstep, which was owning the karate school, which is a whole other story, which we're not going to talk about here. But my next step was to buy the karate school after the magic shop. So I was high and then I crashed, right? But I followed the same scenario to get out of that, which then led me to my dream of being a full-time professional entertainer. So, hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Please subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the videos I create for you. And if you like this video, please click the thumbs up and comment below. As always, kick butt and make mucho dinero. I'll see you next time.